Everybody. Happy New Year. Steve Zreich, Superintendent of Schools, proud Superintendent of Schools in Salem, Massachusetts. We're really thrilled to have Governor Baker here. Of course, Mayor Driscoll, who's a good friend of Saltonstall School, and very grateful for Saltonstall for hosting this quick visit this morning, and Principal Lister and the team here. I just want to say before I introduce the mayor, we're thrilled to be back in school, first day back in the new year. While there's been some twists and turns leading up to the return to school, we feel very prepared. We're very appreciative to the state of Massachusetts. Department of Education provided us with testing kits that we were able to get out to all of our staff and students in advance of today, and folks had a chance to test before coming back. And then all our staff was greeted with new masks this morning, courtesy of the state of Massachusetts. So we're very grateful to our partners at the state level. And while there's going to be some curveballs to navigate over the next couple of days, we think it's critical that kids are in school. We have seen what the pandemic did for students who were out of school for a long period of time. It's been a challenge, an adjustment for students to come back, and we don't want to go that route if we don't have to. Of course, we're going to monitor, and we're going to very carefully look at health data and our staffing. We got to make sure we have appropriate staff to run school every day, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we keep the student experience stable and that we can offer the great things that are happening for young people in the Salem Public Schools. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Mayor Driscoll on Inauguration Day to the podium. So I'll turn it over to Mayor Driscoll.
Thank you, Steve. It was terrific to be out there this morning, a little chilly, welcoming so many of our students and families back on a typical reopening day. In light of the surge that we're seeing, we know that there can be some trepidation, but so proud of the team here at Salem Public Schools, all of our teachers and staff who've been working so hard throughout the school year, but particularly as we come back to protect themselves, make sure that we have a safe environment. We're really fortunate here in Salem that we have been conducting a weekly testing program. This is something that started a year ago here in Salem Public Schools, something the state partners with us. So beyond the rapid tests that we were able to deploy to all students and staff, and especially to our teachers over this weekend with the last push, we also do weekly testing. Every single student and staff member has an opportunity to be tested to help us isolate spread. We know it's important that we take extra precautions from masking up, testing, ensuring as many of our students and staff are vaccinated and boosted. We'll be doing in-person vaccination clinics within our schools to try and pick up and catch any of the families or staff who haven't had a chance to be boosted or had vaccinated yet. All of those efforts collectively, along with extra staff, we fully anticipate that we're going to have staffing vacancies or shortages due to COVID. Frankly, that was the case before the holiday as well. But I think the most important thing we want to stress to our students and our families is the need for our students to be in person. Someone described to me virtual school as like playing basketball underwater, and I think that really sums it up. It doesn't work well for our students and family. We know, frankly, the negative impacts. We're seeing it within our young adults from a year and a half of disruptions and interrupted school. And we're going to do everything we can to keep our schools safe, to keep an environment here where kids can learn, and we know that's a priority for our students and families, and we're really grateful. None of that would be possible without a partnership from rapid tests. Rapid tests are the most difficult thing to procure in bulk quantities right now. We're chasing them. Thanks to the state contract, we're hoping to get them here within a week. We've ordered some prior. They're hard to get. Not every city and town has access to the state. Not every city and town has access across the Commonwealth and across the country to accessing these bulk quantities. Everyone's chasing them. The fact that we had 200,000 of them here within the Commonwealth is pretty spectacular, enabling us to start the school year. But the weekly testing and all those efforts that we have at our disposal are what's going to keep our kids in school. And we're grateful for the state partnership enabling that to happen. And I want to thank Governor Baker for joining us this morning to welcome students and families back to school as we get ready for a tough couple of weeks, but one that we think we can manage and keep kids in school. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Mayor. And let me just say to Mayor Driscoll and to Superintendent Zreich, what a terrific job you've done over the course of this past school year, and how much we appreciate the partnership with you and your teams on so many of these issues. We've said for quite a while, since the beginning of the school year, in fact all the way back to last spring, that it was critically important for kids to be in school for a number of reasons. Some of it has to do with educational development, but a lot of it has to do with social development, human development, and frankly, in many cases, especially for some of the older kids, just their mental health status generally. And I think Mayor Driscoll's analogy that remote school is like playing basketball underwater. As somebody who played basketball like I was underwater on many occasions, that's an analogy I can understand. I think at this point in time, what I would say is that the vast majority of the school districts and schools in Massachusetts are opening today, which I think is incredibly important and a terrifically positive sign about the hard work that so many people around the Commonwealth are doing every single day to make sure kids get the education that they're entitled to and that they deserve, and that they and their families have the predictability that comes with knowing that their schools are going to be open and available to serve their kids. The Commonwealth has partnered quite aggressively over the course of the year with our schools in Massachusetts. I think roughly 2,200 schools participate one way or another in many of our testing programs. Salem's taken full advantage of all of them. That weekly testing program we've been running since the start of the year gives schools, families, and parents, and students and teachers a pretty good understanding about what the positive test rate is like in their particular facility. In many cases, that number has really never gotten much above a point. In addition to that, we've managed to save roughly 450,000 school days this year with our Test and Stay program. And some of the parents that we spoke with out in the courtyard on their way in with their kids this morning said that that Test and Stay program had been invaluable to them, both in terms of their ability to understand what was going on with their kids and their kids' friends and with teachers and staff here in this school, but also gave them comfort that people were, in fact, in a safe environment. The final thing I'll say is that Salem is one of those communities that took full advantage of the first 2 million tests that we were able to make available to cities and towns and distributed them widely, in many cases, to families and to kids and to teachers, and took full advantage of the second round of tests. And we've had a lot of active traffic on our state website, which we've made available to all the Commonwealth cities and towns to purchase additional rapid tests, and we expect those will start arriving later this week. But I just want to say how much we appreciate the chance to be here today with the folks in Salem at the Salt and Salt School, and we look forward to what will certainly be, I think for all of us, a challenging period of time, but one in which I do believe the people of Massachusetts will pull hard once again to make sure the kids are in school and have that in-school experience, which is so important to their development, both economically and socially. Any questions for any of us? Well, first of all, you may all recall that earlier this year, at the beginning of the school year, when most of the folks managing the bus programs had programs, we offered National Guard people to actually drive those buses. And they did it in many communities. Boston, by the way, turned down the opportunity to participate with the National Guard on that program. I think in many ways we'll continue to do what we can to support communities under those circumstances where they have situations that arise. Everybody's going to have to adjust and plan based on the data as it becomes available. The most important thing about that particular circumstance is that people have some sense about what the state of play looks like. And that's one of the reasons why this testing program has been so important to us, because it does give people a sense on what the state of play is, and they can make adjustments accordingly. I think everybody knows that the issues associated with staff and faculty will be complicated, and we'll do whatever we can to help people work their way through it. I do take some comfort in the fact that most cities and towns and most school districts have not spent the vast majority of the federal money they receive to support their educational programming during this school year, and that can be, I think, a terrific tool to help people figure out how to bring people in to deal with some of the issues they have around staff as the year goes on. Well, students are being tested. There are 2,200 schools participating one way or another in our student testing programs. Now, the level of the testing they participate in is very much a function of how aggressive the districts choose to be with respect to which program they engage in. But as I said, we've had about 450,000 school days that have been saved because of the test and stay program that we put in place earlier this year.
Several districts have postponed their start of school. Do you anticipate, are you worried that more districts may delay further this week or possibly cancel the week if we don't have the staff to keep up?
You know, it's interesting. There was all kinds of talk last week about how school wouldn't open in Massachusetts today. School did, pretty much across the Commonwealth. There are a very small number of districts that aren't in school. Some started late, but the vast majority of the school districts in Massachusetts, thanks to the hard work of so many people who were part of those school districts, are open today. The rules here are pretty simple. We count in-person school as school. If a school district's not open at some point over the course of the year, they can use snow days until they run out of snow days, but they do need to provide their kids with 180 days of in-person education this year. And we'll do whatever we can to help them deliver on that. Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is that teachers have been participating to the extent that school districts want them to in a variety of testing programs that we've had available since the start of the school year. And many communities, including the one I'm with here today in Salem, made those tests available to both their families and to their students that we ordered before Christmas. And in some cases, they also made those tests available to their teachers. We were able to secure about 200,000 tests in the midst of what was a mad dash around the country to access those kinds of tests, and we distributed them on Saturday morning. And many districts around the Commonwealth now have the ability to purchase additional tests through our state contract, and there was a ton of traffic on that site last week, and those tests will probably start arriving later this week.
And something else that you mentioned is that their concern with the distribution of masks for teachers as well. Can you speak to that and kind of that concern that they have?
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, the federal government made billions of dollars available to school districts around the Commonwealth to purchase whatever they needed to support keeping their kids in school, because that was also a federal priority. And many districts have used those dollars to purchase masks over the course of the school year so far, and will probably continue to do so as the year goes on. In addition to that, the Commonwealth made roughly 6 million masks available to school districts if they choose to use them as part of the supply that they make available to their students and their staff. And those masks were tested by MIT, and they were deemed to be about 85% effective.
Is there any maximum time that the school could keep delaying in-person learning around Massachusetts and several schools have already started to delay?
Yeah.
Today, Wednesday, is there any max time that they have to reach, they can reach?
In Massachusetts, under state law, you're required to provide 180 in-person days of school each year. And we expect every school and every school district in Massachusetts to deliver on that 180 days. Now, that calendar usually means that people build in professional development days. They build in days for snow. They build in days for other circumstances and situations. But in the end, they need to provide 180 in-person school days to the kids that they take care of.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks. Say again? I don't know about the particular part of the website you're talking about. We can follow up with you. But the state overall, the Department of Public Health, pretty much adopted the CDC guidelines with respect to isolation and quarantine last week. It may just be that it hasn't been updated yet. Thanks, everybody. And thanks again to the folks here in Salem.